Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. My name is Jim Schultens. I'm a systems engineer here at Verify, and I'll be your host for today's workshop. And today we're joined by none other than CDR Jesus himself, Victor Verba. How you doing today, Vic?
I'm doing good, Jim. Thank you.
Good. Today, Vic's going to go over some new Cube enhancements in version 13 EFT, which will allow you to report on Cube data even if NTP is not set up. And he's also going to show if NTP is set up and having sync issues, how to recognize this, and more importantly, how to fix it. All right, we're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Next, Vic will lead us into a live demo to go over some of the important Cube information. We'll pause for some Q&A and get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you do have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right of your screen. After Q&A, we will reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. So make sure you hang around to see if you've won. All right, quick overview of Verify. Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR, UCCX, and Cube call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, remote phone control, and change management. But today we're going to focus on the Cube and NTP. If you have any other questions on any of our other features, please feel free to chat me up in the Q&A panel on the bottom right side. All right. One more thing before we get things kicked off. For those of you looking for more hands-off Verify experience, we do offer a managed consulting service. This is a service that provides a dedicated Verify SE to do all the heavy lifting, giving you and your users completely hands-off experience. I think of us as an extension of your organization. It provides upgrades, one-on-one training, report and dashboard building, or anything you need. Your dedicated Verify system engineer has you covered. The only thing you have to do is give us a call or send an email. If you'd like additional information on our ECS service, feel free to reach out to your account manager, and we'd be happy to see if ECS is right for you. All right, with all that said, I will kick it over to Vic to lead us into the wild.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us today for this weekly workshop. So one of the things that we've added here, and this is a Verify 13.0 EFT release. For anybody interested in joining our EFT release, please make sure you head over to planet.verify.com. Click on the Join Now to go ahead and submit a request to join the EFT release. If you haven't had the opportunity, definitely take a look at our webinars. We've got quite a few things coming out in our EFT release, including database archiving, audible alerts for CCX, and quite a bit more. So today what we're going to focus in on is another part of our EFT release. And that's the ability to process that Cube data and report that Cube data when NTP is not synced within your Cisco Cube. We had a lot of customers that either NTP was just never set up, they're just using local clock and they kind of prefer to use the local clock, or some that just never really got around to setting it up, or maybe they had an incorrect NTP server. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of show you a little bit of how we identify the call data when NTP is not set up or configured. So in previous releases prior to 13.0, if NTP was not configured, the Cisco data would come across with a character in front of the call data. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like, I'm going to go ahead and just open up what we'll consider a flat file that we're receiving from the Cisco Cube. So there's a lot of things here to look at. We're not going to have to look at all of them. One of the first things that we're going to look at is on a row per row basis, we're going to receive a date and time. So very easily, we can kind of take a look at this, and we're going to be able to clearly see date and times. When your NTP is not synced within your Cube, you're going to have an asterisk in front of the date and time. That tells us right off of the bat that NTP is not synced within your Cube environment. There could also be a period or a dot in front of the date and time. That tells us that NTP is set up, it's just out of sync. So a couple different things. Prior to version 13.0, we would not process this data. The reason behind that is we didn't want the times to be wrong. Relying on the local time of the cube can be a little bit misleading with anything, whether it's a Windows or an iOS-based device. Time can get a little off if it's not synced with the proper NTP server. However, we've had a lot of customers that said, hey, we just want to use the local time on the cube. We've got it set. We keep track of it. That's fine. So with EFT 13.0, we are going to allow you to process that data. The first way to recognize that something is not synced is really if you're looking at the data, you're going to see an asterisk or a period in front of the date and time within that call data. Just to kind of give you an example of what it looks like when it's coming through normally. Pretty straightforward. Biggest difference here is you're going to see that there is no date and time. Now you notice these are two different data files. This one has CST in front of it. The other one had UTC in front of it. And that's okay. That all depends on how your call manager is set. However, one thing to keep in mind is if you are going to be using the local time on your Cisco Cube device, that you should be using the proper time zone so that way the call data is getting flagged with the proper time zone as well. All right, so that's one way to go ahead and recognize it just by looking at the data. So, well, one thing you may notice is if you're running reports and you are using local sync, that it's possible that the times of your calls will be off. Normally, you're not going to see something like a 2 or 3 day delay. If you're seeing something like that, something probably happened within your cube to configure those times and have those dates be extremely invalid. But you may notice some dates and times off on your data. So how do we check that within Verify? How do we see if our date and times are off? There's a couple different ways to do it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to log into the Verify server. We're going to go through the CLI, and we're just going to quickly open up a file and take a look and see our date and times. It's not going to be the prettiest thing in the world, but again, we're not looking at all of the data. We just want to see a sample. We're just looking at the date and time to see if it has a period or a star and what the date and time on that data is. So let's start off with that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my handy dandy CLI client, and I'm going to use PuTTY in this case. And we're going to go ahead and log right into the Verify server. So we're going to use your login here that you use for your Verify OVA server. We'll also go ahead and take a look at Windows. Windows is a little bit different because all you have to do is navigate the interface and open up a directory. Now, we are in the Verify server, so where do I go to take a look at my data? Pretty straightforward. If you head over to the gear on the right-hand side and go to your Cube iOS devices, you're going to see a list of your Cube devices. Right in that list, you're going to see a directory path. This is the directory path where we are storing your call data if you are storing call data. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that guy out and just navigate right over to that directory there. Now, this is the directory where the call data is being sent from the cube. If we do a list command or an ls command within our interface here, it's going to give us a list of directories. You'll notice a progress directory and also a processed directory in there. Processed means that data has been processed into your Verify system and is reportable. That is what you are reporting now. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and change directory, issue a cd command, and we're going to go into the processed folder. Now we're in the process directory. If I do an ls here to list all the files, you're going to have quite a few files in here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pick the most current file. There's a couple different ways you can identify that. I can go ahead and do an ls space -l, and you're going to see the dates and times of those files. That is the date and time that the file was presented to Verify. Give you a pretty good idea of what your files are that you're looking at. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this file out, and we're going to take a quick peek at him just using the standard CLI. There are a lot of different data editors and readers within the Linux platform. You use cat, you have your choice. In this example, I'm just going to use a vim command. So I'm just going to type in sudo vim, and then I'm just going to paste the file name in there. That's going to go ahead and bring up the data. Not as pretty as looking at it in like a text format, but it still accomplishes the job. This is going to go ahead and start with the latest file. The latest one is going to be a single call record coming through. Now, if we follow this guy through, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to get right to a date and time, no different than what we were looking at in our flat file, just a little, maybe a little less pretty. But what we can see right here is we have that asterisk in here. So this is the date and time of the local Cisco Cube environment. This is not synced with NTP. So that's one way to go ahead and take a look at the files that Verify has already processed. If you're questioning a certain day, you can always go in there, look at the date using that ls-l command, and then just edit that file to see what kind of data it is that we're looking at. All right. Alternatively, if you're not familiar with Linux, that's totally okay. Either am I. We're going to close that guy down. You can always open up an SFTP client. You have your choice of SFTP clients out there, whether it's SolarWinds, WinSCP, FileZilla. It doesn't make a difference. You got your choice. But you could always log into the Verify OVA using an SFTP client. Here, I'm just going to go ahead and log right into my server. And the same way I found my directory path here is the same thing that I'm going to look at from an SFTP perspective. I'm going to go back up and navigate to our root directory. And then if we follow our path here, you can see I have opt verify data cube. So I'm going to go from my root directory here over to the opt verify data cube, and you may have several different cubes that you want to take a look at. You may have several different folders that you're looking at in here. Just keep in mind that this directory here within Verify is going to list all of those cube environments that you may have. From there, I'm going to go to my VG227, and you'll see I have my process directory and my date and timestamp. I can always just copy that guy out just by dragging and dropping, open him up with Notepad, no different than we did before, and we'll be able to see again that we have those asterisks in front of our data. So one of the things that you may be thinking is, okay, well, now I know that I'm not synced, or maybe I'm out of sync. So let me go ahead and take a look at a cube. I'm not going to go ahead and turn this into an entire how to troubleshoot your NTP server environment from a Cube iOS, because there are a lot of different things that can go wrong. But we're going to go ahead and cover a couple of them. So let me go ahead and I'm going to log into one of our Cube gateways here. All right. So first thing we're going to do, now that I'm logged into my Cisco Cube here, we may want to take a look at a couple different settings first to see where our NTP is at. So I'm going to do an NTP status. If I could spell. Second. There we go. Show NTP status. Now, what I'm looking at here is this one is synchronized. That's great. That's where I want to be. You may not be synchronized. Some of the most common things we see when synchronizations fail are, one, potentially there's no NTP server set up. So let's take a look and see if we have an NTP server set up. In this case, I know we do, but we're going to take a quick peek. So we're going to do show NTP associations. And I'm just going to hit tab there. Once you start typing, it's going to go ahead and automatically bring up the command if you hit the tab button. So I'm doing NTP show associations. This is showing me where my NTP server is configured to go out and look. If this comes up with nothing, that means that you don't have NTP set up, and you're probably going to want to go ahead and get your NTP set up properly using normal commands. Again, I'm not going to go through the entire commands for setting up NTP, but this is going to give you some idea of where you need to go next. Now, one of the other things that I'm going to go back a couple commands here is when we do see something unsynchronized, I would say sometimes one of the most common things we see is that the system clock within the Cube router is considerably off compared to the NTP server. That will cause the NTP server to fail and never go out and look at the NTP or not be able to bring back the appropriate information. So next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and just kind of take a look at what our clock is set to. simple show clock command is going to give you the date and time that is set on the physical device. So now we are looking at the Cube device to see what the date and time was. I can see that it's 11:11 PST. So our system clock is a little bit off, but not significantly enough where it's going to impact NTP clearly. Now, if you come in here and you notice that your dates or your years or even your times are more than 8 hours off, that's going to cause a significant problem. And from there, you're going to want to go ahead and update the clock and make sure that the clock is up to date as close as possible to what your NTP server is. Those are probably some of the two most common configuration problems we see. But again, there are a lot of different things that could go wrong. You know, another one being unable to get outside of your Cisco Cube. There are access lists within Cisco Cube that can be enabled or disabled. So access lists are another one where sometimes the NTP server that you're attempting to get out to needs to be added to the access list. So again, there are a lot of different ways to identify this and try to get that clock synchronized. But ultimately, it may be a little trial and error. You may have to run a little bit of debug within your Cisco router. But again, the whole purpose of this session is not necessarily to troubleshoot a Cisco router. It's more to show you that we are making improvements to the Verify application, allowing you to report that. But this system clock here, when you are looking at something unsynchronized, is probably the number one we see unsynchronizations. But also it's very important because when you're looking at the system clock, this is the date and time being sent over in your data. So if this is significantly off, your data is also going to be significantly off. So one more thing before we close out. Prior to Verify 12, or Verify 13.0 EFT, when the NTP was off, you would see that you would go into a suspended state. A lot of times you can troubleshoot that just by looking at our logs, but other things that may cause something to go suspended. You'll notice when I'm looking in my router here that I have my time zone set. You'll notice when I look at my data here, I also have a time zone set. And let me bring that guy back up here. And in this case, I'm using UTC. So it's very common if you go and change your clock configurations that you may have to come back to Verify and adjust Verify. So because we are reliant on the Cube CDR to be able to send us the date and time, unlike Cisco, which uses an epoch time, we are completely reliant on that Cube data. So if you change your clock, so let's say from UTC to PST or EST or CDT, you're also going to want to make sure that you update Verify. Something that's very common is somebody may go ahead and they may clean up their Cube, or they may set their time zone as they're going through to set up their synchronization. That will change the data from a UTC to perhaps something different. Like in this case, it's CST. So one of the things to keep in mind, if the time zone is not properly set within Verify, as it is within the data, this will also cause your system to go suspended. So another way to be able to troubleshoot that is our logs are going to be very clear. They're going to go ahead and tell you that the time zone is off. Let's see if I have any in here that will give us that representation here. And I got a feeling I probably do when I was getting this guy set up here. Looking through the logs, there is a CDR processing log. This is the log that's going to go ahead and tell us if we're rejecting calls or even if we're processing calls successfully. So right off of here at the top, one of the things you're going to notice, if you are suspended and you are on 13.0, first place you would probably go ahead and look is the CDR processing log where I'm at right now. And you'll take a look right off of the bat. You're going to see errors. And we're going to go ahead and tell you there appears to be a time zone mismatch. I was initially configured for US Central Time, in other words, this time, and then I made some adjustments to my Cube, and I'm now using UTC. So I needed to adjust my Verify system to use UTC to be able to properly look at that data. You'll also notice that it is going to tell you it is suspended. So a great way, if you do make adjustments, you do sync up your UC or your Cube environment, and for some reason you still go suspended, definitely go ahead and take a look at those CDR processing logs to get an idea of why it's suspended, and you may just need to adjust your Cube settings to the proper time zone. that time zone can be pulled directly from the data that you're sending just by looking at the time zone that you have in the call data. All right. All right, Jim. Well, with that, I think that's probably about all I have from a troubleshooting and identification perspective. Jim, do we have any questions today?
No, you covered it so well. We do not have any questions at the moment.
Excellent.
If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask those in the Q&A panel there. All right. Don't see any more coming in, so we will move on. And all right, I want to remind you about Planet Verify, the new online community where you can connect with your peers and expand your knowledge of all things Verify. As Vic mentioned, this is also where you can sign up to be a beta tester for Verify EFT 13. So hop on over to planet.verify.com or verify.com/planet and take a look around. All right, the moment we've all been waiting for. The winner of this week's $50 Amazon gift card is Rafael Ochoa. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Congratulations, Rafael. Your account manager will be reaching out to you shortly. All right, don't forget to join us next week where the dynamic duo of Mike and Matt will cover some more helpful CUBE information by showing us what to do when CUBE stops sending data to Verify and how to recover that data from Flash. I know I'm looking forward to that one. All right. That being said, I think we're done for today. Everybody have a great week and thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys.